Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japanese 101, Lesson 1, which is going to be basic sentence structure and a little bit about particles. To do a quick intro of this. So this is a new thing that I want to do. Let's start with the goals, because I think it's important to create things, to do things with your goals in mind, obviously, because that's what we want to work towards. So, Japanese 101, why am I doing it, and what do I hope to accomplish with it? Well, what do I hope to accomplish are a multitude of things. I want to have a more structured approach to teaching Japanese in a sort of lecture style setting on this channel. Number 2, I want to get new people on board, for which obviously I'm going to have to go back to the basics. And number 3, I want to make it easier for you to understand. I'm ahead of this, but finally going to follow for the future. Yes, thank you for the follow. Welcome, Beth. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to start at the very basics. I'm going to assume only one thing, basically. I'm going to assume that you know hiragana and katakana. If you don't, and you're watching this like later or on YouTube or whatever, and I will make sure that this is on YouTube, go and learn the kana, okay? I have links. There's links everywhere on the channel, and we have a bot command for it. Here you do this. I should probably add some more links to that command, because the Tofugu guide is good, but I feel like there needs to be a little bit more. So if you know the kana, that's good. That's all I'm going to assume. If you don't, please look into that. Now, how we're going to go about this? So I aim to do this for about an hour each time. So for today, it might be a bit longer with the explanation or the intro, but usually I'm going to aim for about an hour for every episode, okay? And then we're going to do it weekly. Now, today we're going to start, like I said, with the basic Japanese sentence structure, which I think is important for you to sort of understand as a first thing. And to understand Japanese sentence structure, we're going to look at English sentence structure as well. Oh, yeah, maybe I should say this is the second thing I'm going to assume. The second thing I'm going to assume is that you are learning Japanese through English, or are at least good enough at English to understand my explanation in English. Every time I will compare Japanese, I will compare it to English for the most part. I might go off on tangents, talk about other languages, but for the most part, our reference frame is going to be English, okay? So if that's a problem for you, I'm sorry, but I feel like it is the easiest way to make things consistent. And it's also, I think, the easiest way to basically convey that information, if we just choose English as our reference frame. Alright, but those are basically the two things that I wanted to mention, and now that we have that out of the way, we can get started. Hey Johannes, welcome to Japanese 101 episode 1, or I should say lesson 1. Okay, now, what do I mean with basic sentence structure? And again, remember, I'm not going to assume that you know anything about grammar or Japanese or whatever, okay? Except for you know how to understand the English that I'm saying. You know how to make sense of the English, right? So usually when we talk about basic sentence structure within a language, we use 3 letters to describe that structure. You've probably seen that. We use an S, which usually stands for subject. For the most part, in this context, it stands for subject. Subject. Wait, that's not how you spell subject. Subject. We use an O, which stands for object. And we use a V, which stands for verb. Verb. Okay? So you might have seen this, SOV, SVO, all of these. You might have seen it online, you might have seen it mentioned, you might have seen it at school. But what actually do these words mean? Like, what do they really mean, okay? Because I know some people, either they haven't had a grammar class in a very long time, or they never really cared about it that much at school, or etc, etc. So a lot of people, when you mention the word subject, object, verb, I would say it splits about, it depends on the audience, but sometimes it's like a 50-50 split, sometimes it's more like a 30-70 split, of the 70 kind of knowing what you mean, and the 30 kind of being like, yeah, but what does that actually mean? So, to get everyone on board, let's talk about what these words really mean in a grammatical context. I'm gonna make this as simple as possible. I'm not gonna take out my linguistic definition book or whatever. I'm just gonna tell you how I interpret them and like what I think is a good way of understanding these terms is. So, a subject within grammar, and again, this is important that we're not talking about a subject of a painting or whatever, like if you're drawing a subject. No, this is specifically for a grammar context. So a subject within the context of grammar is generally... What's up? Thank you for the raid. Hey everyone, welcome. Hey, well, you've come at the right time. Nana-san, raid arigato. Welcome everyone, 17 people. Well, today we are doing Japanese 101. So if there are any people among the raiders who are like, man, learning Japanese would be kind of nice, today is your lucky day. And thank you for the resub. Welcome back. 3 months. Right time indeed. No, Japanese. No, out of all the things. So I was about to give sort of a groundwork to explain the 3 terms, subject, object, and verb. So generally when we mention the word subject in Japanese, or sorry, when we mention the word subject in grammar, we mean sort of the doer of the action within the sentence. It's the usually it's kind of the focal point of the sentence. It's basically the way usually you can see the subject. It's the person doing the action, okay? And you'll see that, especially with Japanese, this action, which we'll see is the verb, is sort of, the whole sentence sort of kind of revolves around the verb and the action kind of, and then also around the subject doing that action, which is also very important. So just remember the subject is basically like the actor of the sentence in the very general case. Then the object. So usually in grammar, when we say object, and we don't specify further, we mean the direct object. What is a direct object? Usually the best way to think of it is that a direct object is just a thing directly affected by the verb. Now, don't confuse subject and object, just keep them as separate as you can. So sometimes there will be a subject that's doing something, but 日本人は難しすぎる授業。そうですね。ごめんなさい。今日は多分、こう、主に英語を使いますので、ごめんなさい。So, sometimes you have an actor, you have someone doing something, and you have something that it is done to. Like, if I punch you, then you're being punched, and I'm doing it. So you would be the direct object, basically. So trying to keep that separate in your head, don't confuse it. Again, object or direct object, usually the thing affected by the action. And lastly, verb, which is just the action itself, usually. Verbs are often called action words as well. So they basically are words describing actions, like things you do, okay? Doing words, all of that. So with those 3 terms out of the way, or rather with those 3 terms defined, we can now start using these 3 to describe basic sentence structure. Shame if we're 英語禁止. Yeah, don't use that. If you use it, I'm going to ignore it because right now we're in special Jugyo mode, I guess. So yeah, I will do it later. I'll write it down, but if you use it, I will ignore it. I'm sorry. Verbs already out of the way. Well, at least we know what they are. Now, we know these 3 terms, at least enough to describe, you know, basics. Describe a basic sentence. And usually with those 3, you get, like, in most languages, you get, like, the core sentence, like what a very basic sentence would look like. For example, in English, most of you probably know this, but English is a typical... Let me make a little note here. There we go. So English, ENG. English is a typical subject, verb, object language. What do I mean by that? Well, make any simple sentence in your head and test it. For example, something like, I eat an apple. You have I. Obviously, I is our subject. It's a pronoun. So we have the subject, which is a pronoun I, me, and then we have our verb eat, which means to eat something is the action to eat, which is clearly an action, so that is a verb, works out. An object, an apple. Well, obviously the thing that is affected by the eating in this sentence is the apple, because literally the apple is what we eat. So I eat an apple is a very clear example of subject, verb, object. Now, before you go out and be like, but Eve, what about if we have, do you eat the apple or whatever? Like, I mean, basic sentences. So, once you get into, you know, question sentences, relative clauses, all of this more advanced, complex stuff, this obviously changes. This is the core. いや、これ、どう読めばいいのかな？ななななしさんさん。フォローありがとうございます。Thank you so much for the follow. So once you get into more complex sentences, of course, this simple description of just having a subject, a verb, and an object, it doesn't really break down. It just becomes a kind of like an oversimplification. But essentially, the core of every English sentence sort of will revolve around this basic structure of subject, verb, object. Okay? Now, how does Japanese work? For the first time in this lesson, we're actually going to talk about Japanese now, which I guess is why you're all here, right? Or are you? Do you want to talk about English? I don't know that much about English, sadly. I should learn some English to do English classes, huh? 一応、七志さん、七志さん、そうですか。今日は眠いのでまた見に来るよ。はい。またね、見てくれてありがとう。Talk about Americago. Yes, maybe. Torikago. So, how is the basic structure in Japanese? What is the basic structure in Japanese? Type it in chat. I know most of you know it. And if you don't, you can always just try and make an example sentence and then analyze it and be like, okay, what would it be? Yes. For some reason, my shoulder hurts. Banana. Almost, Daniel. That's pretty close. Come on, anyone. Do it. S-O-V. We have it. We got it. Yes, S-O-V. Perfect. Do it. S-O-V. Okay. That is the core structure of a Japanese sentence will always be subject, object, verb. Remember those three, again, subject, object, verb, just like we described. Now, how you make a Japanese sentence, we're going to, basically that's the goal for today's lesson, is to teach you how to make this kind of sentence. Like, the goal for today's lesson is that you're going to walk away and be like, aha, I know how to make a basic SOV sentence now, using nothing but a dictionary, basically. That's what I want to achieve. So, now that we know that the basic sentence structure in Japanese is subject, object, verb, the next thing we're going to have to learn is how to put these words in sort of the appropriate order in a sentence so that it makes sense, so that works out. For example, you know, in English, we have to do things like conjugate the verb. If I say, I eat an apple, that's fine, that's correct. But if I say, Bob eat an apple, then it's not correct anymore because I messed up the conjugation. So these are like things that we're going to look at today. So how do you make this work? What are things you have to change? And depending on what do you have to make those changes? Of course, you're not gonna learn all of Japanese today. I'm sorry to disappoint. Follow arigato. Thank you for the follow, Blueberry Haze. Welcome to Japanese 101. 私はリンゴです。So I'm to maybe give a lookout for next week. I think next week what we're going to talk about is the copula. The basics of the copula. So for today we're not going to talk about the copula, but then next week we will. For those of you who don't know what a copula is, well, better bookmark the stream and be back next week. So, let's make some space, okay? I'm gonna get rid of this. Now, another thing I should mention is that subjects and objects are usually nouns, okay? So these are usually nouns. And actually, to be really pedantic about it, you would have to call this here the verb. You would call it like the predicate, I guess, and the predicate would be a verb, right? Because verb is a type of word, and subject and object is not a type of word, but rather a function of a word. But let's leave that aside for now. It's going maybe a bit too deep. But so the type of word here would be usually noun, and obviously verb. So the function of the verb would be like, usually we would call that the predicate, I think, but it's not that important. Raise your hand. How long have you studied Japanese? Raise my hand. How? I can't raise my hand that high, I don't think. That already helps us a lot. If we know that in those positions for subject, object, and verb, there needs to be a noun usually, or at least something that works as a noun, such as a pronoun or a nominalized word, that already helps us to sort of eliminate some things. For example, if someone tells us atatakai in Japanese means warm, and we know that's an adjective, we know not to make that the subject of a sentence, because it makes no sense, right? It would have to be sort of a noun or a word that can function as such as a pronoun. I think they were raising their hand like in a classroom. Yes, maybe. Raise hand. You want to know how long I've been learning Japanese? For many years, like 8 years. はじめまして、日本人が英語を喋れるようになるのにどうしたらいいと思いますか？どうでしょうね。いっぱいこう、映画の動画とか動画を見て本を読んで、こう毎日、英語という言語に接して、こうだんだん、わかるようになると思います。I got here just how behind am I? Not that much. You have just sort of missed the basic explanation for this SOV encoding of sentence structure, but I hope you already have heard that before. And if not, check out the VOD, I guess. ゲームのバイオハザードで英語を学びました。Nice, that's good. 僕フォローすればいいです。Nice, yeah. So, the next thing we need to get this to work is that we need to talk about, so I'm going to get rid of this now, SOV, subject, object, verb. I'm going to get rid of this now, so burn it into your minds. The next thing that we're going to talk about is a little bit of understanding of how we can make those sentences. Now, in English, okay, in English, I'm going to make another ENG, because this is like a big difference. This is like the number one difference that people have to get used to. In English, like position kind of corresponds to function, okay? I'll explain what I mean. And in Japanese, well, you thought it does not. Thank you so much, Mirok-san. Thank you so much. Thank you for the follow. 回答ありがとう。日本語、綺麗ですね。ありがとうございます。でも、まだまだ勉強してます。So, in English, position determines function, more or less, okay? What I mean by that is, we rely on the order of the words within the sentence to tell us what those words are doing. For example, you can test this very easily. Let's take that sentence again from before. I eat an apple. Well, we can't really change that order without losing the meaning of the sentence. We can make it an apple eat I, but that's wrong. That is just objectively wrong. Like, it's not a correct sentence anymore. Or we could make it like an apple eats me, but obviously we have changed the meaning of the sentence now. ご飯食べる. That's a good start. We're gonna get into this. Thank you and you. So we can't really change the order of that sentence without changing something pretty fundamental about it. What we can do is maybe use passive to change that order, but then we're using a completely different structure. So the point is, in English, the position of the words is very integral to their function within the sentence. Okay? Now, in Japanese, that is much less the case. In Japanese, we get particles. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about. In Japanese, we have particles determining function. So basically, what that means is, ところで、アメリカは何時ですか？いや、僕はアメリカに住んでません。僕はヨーロッパに住んでますので、まあ、アメリカには、今は多分、何時でしょう？こう、昼頃？昼あたりかな？I think it's like around noon. Yeah, see? There you go. Particles in Japanese, we have a whole class of words called particles, which help us figure out what the function of a word is in a sentence. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about. And then after that, we're going to go back to sentence structure and we're going to make a few sentences. And then hopefully you too will be able to make basic Japanese sentences. And that's, again, that's the goal for today's episode. Let me see. Okay, very nice. All right, so the next thing we're going to need is going to talk about particles and what they are and how they work. 日本は今、朝2時. It's early. So I'm going to make this big and red. It's important. Particles. What are they? Where did they come from? Where did they go? Fan-san, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to lesson number 1. Alright. Particles in Japanese are the backbone of the language. I think it's safe to say that particles is what makes Japanese work, and at the same time it's what makes Japanese very different from what you're probably used to. So if your native language is a European language, like English, French, German, whatever, then you will be probably most confused by this concept of particles when you get started. Thank you for the follow, Bep if I read that correctly. Welcome to Game Grammar. So this concept of particles might be one thing that confuses you the first when you first encounter it, okay? But actually, particles are incredibly helpful and, in my opinion, not all that bad. Actually, I would call them a almost simpler system than the English one. Or a more clear system in many ways. Anyways, well, what is better and what isn't, we're not here to discuss, but the way particles work is basically particles are they're markers of function. They're literally like markers. I don't really have to capitalize this, but function. They're markers of function. They're also, in basically every case, suffixes or postfixes. We've had a discussion about this, but I'm just gonna stick with suffix since even I think Wikipedia calls them suffixes, so. Oops. Suffixes. What is a suffix, by the way? Just means comes after the word, okay? Comes after word. That's a suffix is just maybe you already know this. Maybe suffix is a pretty common term, but again, today in this series, I'm not gonna assume you know any grammar terms. Okay, I'm just gonna. This is the basics of the basics, and if there's any grammar term that I'm using, I will make sure to explain it, or if I don't forget. So I don't wanna assume anything literally. So suffix is a fancy way of saying that a thing is attached after a word. That's basically it. Like, we've had a big discussion about whether it's appropriate to call particles suffixes or postfixes at some point, and I think the conclusion was, so yeah, don't worry about it, basically. We're gonna call them suffixes, that's fine. I'm pretty sure the Wikipedia article also calls them that, so as long as we're as correct as Wikipedia, I'm okay with that. That's a level of quality that I can be fine with. So those are the two things that you need to keep in mind. So, particles, they are markers of function. They are like little flag posts. They're like little tags attached to the word telling us exactly what that word is doing. Well, exactly may be a bit of an overstatement. You're better than Wikipedia. Am I? I'm trying my best. Lee Sensei. I certainly don't have as much information as Wikipedia. In fact, I've used Wikipedia in the past to generate content for the stream when I was researching kanji. Now, with these suffixes, we basically will have the following kind of structure, okay? We'll basically end up with something that looks like this. Assume that every box I draw is like a word. We'll basically have something like this. particle, word, particle, etc. And every time this shows up, you'll know that... Wait, wrong thing. Every time this shows up, you'll know that the way to think about it is basically that the particle affects what's behind it, or in front of it, you could say. So, let's just assume we have a particle that tells us that this word is the subject. Hint, there is such a particle. So let's just say that this particle usually will mark a subject, or will tell us, oh, this is the subject. We can now take this whole unit of, like, you know, basically word plus particle, and we now know we can move it around. Like, we can take this, we can kind of move it around the sentence, but thanks to this attachment of this particle, it will keep its function no matter, I mean, limitations apply, but more or less no matter where it is in the sentence. If you do arithmetic, you'll notice that this is a little bit how you can move around terms in a calculation. Say it's plus and minus, just that plus and minus will usually be prefixes. So if you do this with a calculation, it's actually a similar kind of system, I would say. Say you have a calculation like 4 plus 5 minus 3. As long as I treat these like this, where I have like little boxes like this, with the plus 5 being one thing, and the minus 3 being one thing, I can kind of move these around, everything still works. So if I put this in the front, we just get minus 3 plus 5 plus 4, because there's obviously like a little plus here that we don't write. I think this is kind of similar. Am I friends with PewDiePie? No, I'm not. BGM がトトロだってこと今気づいた。そうですね。It's Ghibli. So the way to think, I think of it kind of similar to this kind of principle. You have like a prefix postfix kind of thing going on, and as long as you move them as a unit, they keep their function just the same, and you're allowed to move things around. Maybe think of it like that. I don't know if you're big into arithmetic, but yeah, there you go. So with this structure in mind, and maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit because sometimes you'll have like longer things. It is not always going to be one word particle. Sometimes you might have multiple words, sometimes you might have whole clauses or whatever, but the like atomic structure of the language will always be sort of like this. And at the very end, you'll have the verb. And that's that. Well, I should say you'll have another word particle, and then you have a verb, and that's the end of the sentence. So any Japanese sentence will sort of break down into this. A bunch of words, a particle, some more words, another particle, and then somewhere a verb. And that's either the end of the sentence, or at least the end of the clause. And what clauses are, we'll talk about in a later episode. Alright, so now that we know this, math are scary. Maths are scary? Wouldn't it be math is scary? 数学は怖くないよ。ないよ。Math is difficult, but can be fun. So, now that we know this, I'm going to introduce you to just 2 particles. So for today, 2 particles, okay? There are many, and we'll learn about some of them, most of them if I have the time. But today, just 2. 2 particles, okay? 数学は美学。ですよね。So the 2 particles that we're going to learn about today, wow, that's a pretty... I'm getting rid of my underline there. Accidentally. The 2 particles that we're going to learn today about are the topic marker and the object marker, okay? And I will say this right now, the topic marker will show up many times more, and we might have a separate episode just talking about it. But for today, I'm gonna keep it simple, okay? For those of you that already know, excuse my oversimplification, but I don't want to overwhelm people with topic stuff. So, in the context of today's episode, the topic will be the subject, okay? I'm not saying that they're the same thing, but I'm saying that in the sentences that we'll present today, they will be overlapping, basically. 地獄. No, that's not true. So the 2 particles that we're going to introduce today are 1. I'm actually going to make a 1 here, because those are going to be all that we need for today's purpose, actually, are going to be wa. And we'll call this the topic marker. I like capitalizing things, but I don't know. You wouldn't usually, but yeah. And 2, or the subject, sorry, or the direct object marker, which looks like this. Direct object marker. You can also replace the word wa. Oh, yes, we're gonna talk about that. That first sounded like Mario. Wa. Yeah. You can replace the word marker here with particle if you want to. You have to type ha. Yes. So first things first. Obviously, the pronunciation of this. I'm gonna call this pronunciation would be like wa. See that I don't run out of space. And this would be pronounced like o, okay? Why is that the case? Well, to keep it simple, it's a leftover from traditional Japanese spelling, where these characters always used to be pronounced wa and o. They aren't anymore. As a leftover from that, every time we see a ha here, but it's filling the function of a topic marker as a particle, we'll know that it is always pronounced wa. And now you're thinking like, but how do I tell, right? But how can I tell whether it is supposed to be wa or ha? And the answer is you'll learn to spot particles, basically. This sounds more difficult than it is. Essentially, after a little bit of practice, you'll be able to at a glance identify the particles within a sentence because of that structure that I talked about. It's going to be word, particle, etc., or maybe like a few words, particle. What you'll never find is a particle in the middle of a word. That just doesn't exist. Now, this is where we'll probably run into problems with our definition of word, because if you see something like, I don't know if I even want to go that far, but so like the definition of a word is a little bit unfortunate because it doesn't really exist. But what I mean is you'll be able to spot, like if you recognize something as like one word, like one meaning, like for example, gakko means school. If you know gakko, and there's not going to be like a topic particle in the middle of that word. That's just never going to happen. You're always going to see that word, and then it's going to be followed by some particle. 95%, it's easy whether it's exactly ha or wa. 5% of the time, I don't know what the hell I'm reading. Yes, so basically, right now, if you're watching this and you're like, how am I ever going to be able to tell? Maybe you've already tried a little bit, maybe you've already been confused by it. I can just tell you, don't worry about it. And yes, Fen brings up a good point. There's usually going to be kanji, and a particle is never going to be like inside a word written in kanji or something like that. Almost like 99% of the time, particles will be written with kana only. Okay? So again, the takeaway is don't worry too much about it. Keep in mind, actually I forgot an E here. E. Likey. Like. The takeaway should be when ha, this hiragana, sorry, when this hiragana ha fills the role of a particle, when it is supposed to be a particle, it is always read as wa. Always. No exceptions. When it is the particle, always wa. The same for o. Even though this will usually be, if you want to type it, right? If you want to type it, you're going to have to type W-O. It is never really pronounced that. Luckily for O is that this here, this O, isn't really used in normal spelling anymore. So whenever you spell a word, you are never really going to use this. So the only place you're going to see O is going to be as a particle already, right? So kanji no gengo ga mendokusai. So the only place that you will see this character, this o, is going to be as the particle. Plus or minus, okay? So sometimes you might see it, not that, but that's extremely rare, okay? That is really like an exception then. Or either like a really old text, or it's just exception, or it's like a manga and it's kind of weird or whatever. 99% of the time, when you see O, it's the particle, it's the direct object marker or direct object particle, and you don't have to worry about how to read it because you know it's always read as O, okay? Those two is what we're gonna basically focus on today. So again, wa, the topic marker, and O, the direct object marker. And now, the big question in the room, which is probably like, but Eve, My name's Eve, by the way. Hello. If anyone's watching this on YouTube later and doesn't know what to call me, that's my name. So there you go. A lot of you, maybe right now, when you're really new, when you're really actually starting to learn, you're like, but Eve, what does topic mean? Because, and you'd be right to ask that. You would be totally right to ask that question. 私は忘れない。私は忘れない。Yes. Can't forget. Sorry, I'll quickly read that message there. 日本にはひらがな、カタカナ、漢字の言語がめんどくさい。そうかな? Yeah, I mean, having kana can be a blessing and a curse. So you're probably gonna be like, Eve, what is a topic? And you'd be right asking me that, because the concept of linguistic or grammatical topic, again, we're talking grammar terms here. I don't mean the topic of your thesis or whatever. I don't mean the topic of like yesterday's TV episode or whatever. No, I mean grammatical topic, okay? And that's kind of different. So we're talking strictly the usage of these words within language, specifically the Japanese language, okay? So topic in a Japanese sentence is a bit of a tricky concept. It's both very simple and very complex at the same time. It's like very easy to learn, but extremely hard to master. But in the broadest sense, okay, the topic is just that. It's just like the topic. It's what the sentence is talking about. It's what we're focusing on. It's basically what we're contrasting against the rest that we don't mention. Kind of like that. That contrastive function of what will come up over and over again as you go through. Think of the topic basically taking one word and then putting a spotlight on that word and basically comparing it to everything else that we don't have a spotlight on. Or think of the topic as basically just the topic of the conversation. Another important part is that in Japanese, once a topic is established, which we do with wa, usually that does not change until a new topic is established, even if the sentence ends. And that's also another tricky thing that people forget sometimes. So those two things, right? It's what we're talking about, it's what it's all about, plus or minus, right? And second, it can persist, basically, until a new topic is established. And then the direct object marker, luckily, isn't difficult to understand if you already understand what a direct object is. And we have talked about it at the beginning of the episode. A direct object is the thing directly affected by the verb. We'll look at a few examples after this. But that's essentially it. If you remember our example sentence, which was, I eat an apple, then the direct object was an apple. Right? Because it's being eaten. It's obviously the thing affected by the eating is the apple. And I is obviously the actor, the thing or the person doing the action, okay? So with those two, now we have a topic marker. Oh, sorry. One last thing I should mention is that grammatical topic. So this is important. Keep this in mind and we'll talk about it a lot in the future. Not today, but in the future. Topic, I'll make it in red so it stands out even more. Topic, I don't know how I should write this. Topic, maybe we'll do not equivalent, okay? Not equivalent. Equivalent to subject. Subject, sorry. Subject. Subject. The topic is not equivalent to the subject, okay? It can be the same, but it isn't equivalent. Ai-san, konnichiwa. Yes, we're doing Japanese 101, Lesson 1. Learning about basic sentence structures plus 2 particles. Plus what particles are. And this will be on YouTube. Just so you know. The topic is not equivalent to the subject. It can be the same depending on the sentence, and this is maybe the stuff that this will probably be conceptually like the hardest thing to grasp, but once you start reading and seeing it, you'll understand what I mean. But the topic and the subject are two different things, okay? Subject is a very strict grammatical definition of the function of a word within a sentence, where topic is more sort of like one layer of abstraction removed, where it's like, well, the topic is kind of like that, it's what we're talking about, it's what we're putting contrast on, but within just the sentence, the topic itself can have different roles. So you can make the object the topic, or you can make the subject the topic, okay? And that's like the trickiest part, to understand that. And you'll get used to it over time. It's just important not to confuse direct, like you, exactly. So subject is essentially a subset of topic, right? So that's like Clam put it. If you know that operator, right? In mathematics, we're bringing math up a lot, but in general, in mathematics or in set theory, this means it's a subset, which means that the topic can encompass subject, but every subject isn't a topic. I don't know if that would be like 100% accurate, because that would mean that like topic encompasses everything that the subject encompasses, but that might not be true. But yeah, it works as an idea, right? So that's just important to keep in mind. In the sentences that we're going to look at today, yes, the topic will be the subject, but that's not always the case, okay? And it doesn't have to be, and it won't be when you're actually encountering it. But today, yes, today it will be the case. Today, we're going to use the topic marker to also at the same time mark the subject, to also use that topic at the same time as a subject, okay? All right, now, we're actually ready. We're actually basically there, guys. Are you ready? Hold on to your hats, because now we actually learned everything we do. We learned everything we need to make a basic Japanese sentence. Like a llama is sitting on my chair. I don't know where you're going with that, but yes, let me hear it. Is a llama sitting on your chair? I'm gonna get rid of this. Llama is the topic and chair is the subject, right? Yes, exactly, basically, right? Well, sitting on the chair. That's not a subject, that's like a indirect object, I would say. English can be tricky with the indirect objects, but sitting on a chair, I think, would be counted as an indirect object. But yes, you're right, like in that sentence, if we were to write it in Japanese, we could probably make the llama the topic, and that would work just fine. But yeah, that would be considered an indirect object. Sitting on something, riding in a car, that all of these are usually indirect objects. Sitting is an intransitive verb. Yes, sitting would be intransitive. I feel like it gets more complicated in English than it is in Japanese. Maybe that might just be because I've spent a lot more time learning Japanese grammar than English grammar. So these things just seem more comprehensive to me. But yes, you have to be a little bit careful because in that sentence, a llama is sitting on my chair. The llama is still the subject because the llama is the thing sitting. So that is still the subject. The chair here would be considered, again, like, don't quote me on this, I hope this is correct, it would be considered an indirect object. And this gets a little bit more complicated, also in English, as well as in Japanese as well. We are going to talk about like stuff like indirect objects. Luckily in Japanese, particles help us understand things like indirect objects in, I think, fairly intuitive ways. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's make... yeah, it describes a location, so it's indirect object. Yeah, so like locations and stuff will describe indirect objects. Some languages will use special cases for those things, like locative cases, but yeah. Okay, where's my brush? There it is. So, now we're ready. So let's make a sentence, okay? I'll do this in yellow. Let's make sentences. I always feel the need to capitalize things. Let's make some sentences. For that, we're gonna need vocab. So let's learn some vocab that we can use to make those sentences. Number one, we need some sort of noun or pronoun to put it at the first part of the sentence. Again, we mentioned earlier, Japanese basic order would be subject, object, verb, but obviously because of that particle nature of the language, we are actually allowed to switch that around. A perfectly normal sentence in Japanese could also be object, subject, verb. And the good thing is, you're not going to be that confused by it, because as long as their particles are coming along, you'll still see what the function of those words is. Right? If the subject or topic particle is still attached to that word, it will always be the topic. Ai-san, gift arigato. Thank you so much for the gifts. Wow. Wait, who got some? Sylviaska, Nest, Clam, Thermospore, Kilroy, Damn, guys. Welcome. Thank you so much. Wow. That's amazing. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I will try my best to keep everything as good as I can. Thank you so much and welcome. Welcome to the sub club, everyone. Nani? Kabuku. Welcome, new learners. Yes. So again, you have these particles. As long as you move them along, right, the words will keep their function. Let's make some simple words. Let's start with simple structures first, though. Let's start with some simple SOV. So, what is this example sentence we made earlier? Was I eat an apple? Well, we need 3 words. What are the 3 words? We need the pronoun I, me, right? We need I. I'll look that up. I think I might get weird results here if I do this. Wait. Yeah, I thought so. So in this dictionary, usually if you look up things like a single Latin character, oh gosh, oof, that is I'll have to report that to Lorenzi. Yes. There you go. So this will help. We can use this pronoun. It is watashi. Watashi. It means I. Okay, this is a pronoun. Luckily, our dictionary tells us this. By the way, also, if you're a beginner, this is my #1 argument why you should use a dictionary like this and not a translator like Google if you want to look up single words, okay? The #1 reason is this. A dictionary will usually tell you a bunch of information, a bunch of important information, which a translator like Google might not tell you. Information such as what type of word is this? For example, this is a pronoun. This can be very important information, right? Which Google might not tell you this. I don't know, sometimes it gives you kind of information, sometimes it doesn't. That's why you should use dictionaries like these. I'm using Lorenzi's right now. That's why you should use these and not Google Translate. If you want to look up a single word, okay? A singular word, dictionaries are the way to go. So we have a pronoun, watashi. Okay, let's write it down. I'm going to use the kanji, but put furigana over it. So we have watashi, okay? So we'll put, or maybe under because I have more space. Watashi, okay? Watashi. Again, I assume you know kana at the very least. Okay, guys. What is the name of that dictionary? So this here is jisho.lorenzi. What was it? Let me see. I'll send you a link. This is a dictionary developed by one of my viewers. And the reason I use it is because he's very kind and he helps me design it in a way where it looks good on my stream. Wolfden. And #2, it's a very nice dictionary, I think, because it has stuff like pitch accent info per default. It's still in development, and I'm constantly in contact with Lorenzi, actually. And just recently, he's added a bunch of new features. Just now, I found a bug, so I will report that to him as well. And yeah, if you want to talk to him and have ideas about what to put in the dictionary, he is on my Discord server, so feel free to join that if you want to talk to him or to other people learning Japanese. So yeah, we have our first word, watashi, which is a pronoun, means I. Now, the big question, right? The question of all questions, what particle do I add? Come on, guys, give it to me in chat. We just learned it. What particle are we going to add here? We have 2 at our disposal. We have a direct object marker, o, and we have a topic marker, wa. So which one are we going to choose? If we want to make the sentence, I eat an apple, or apples. Doesn't really matter. Wow, there you go. #1 has got it correct. Wolfden. I don't get Twitch partners often in my chat. What do you do, Wolfden? Hello, by the way. Welcome. Wow, so everyone got it right. Everyone got wa, which is good. Y'all are smart. Y'all smart, man. Y'all smart. Okay, we got wa. Wieso? Sure, I'm gonna start talking German. Why is it wa? Well, obviously, you can do this kind of by principle of exclusion. If I is supposed to be the subject, and like we're gonna do I eat an apple, and we've discussed before that I is the subject of that sentence, I eat an apple, then it's not the object, right? And if it's not the object, it's not gonna be o, right? The other way of thinking about it is, well, the whole sentence I eat an apple, we can sort of make that revolve around I, around the, you know, that sort of topic, so we mark I as the topic. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. So I'm going to use the particle wa here. Again, wa, not ha. I make video game videos on YouTube, don't mind me. Aw. I mind everyone in my chat. That's cool, I need to check that out. They make lots of Nintendo Switch videos along with other topics. They're enjoyable, help me make good decisions. Oh, nice. That sounds cool. I'll definitely check that out. What do you mean add to dictionary? I would assume it's just a dictionary with all the words. No, I mean, when I said add stuff to the dictionary, I meant features. Like maybe you want a new feature. Maybe you want something to change, to look different. Something like that. That's what I meant. The dictionary file itself doesn't change, yeah. The dictionary file is like actually an open source dictionary file that you can get online. Which is, by the way, if you're concerned or curious, this is the same dictionary file that most, if not all, free dictionaries online will use. So jisho.org will use this exact file. Tangerine uses this exact file. All of these, right? So these are all like the same file. So you'll get the same results on all of these dictionaries. Hey, hi. Thank you so much for gifting us up. Wolfden, welcome. Yes, welcome, Wolfden. Welcome to the sub club, for which I have not gotten a good name, but yes. Jisho has an app as well that's easy on the go looking up stuff. Yes, so yeah. So if you're concerned about, whether these informations differ, usually they'll be the same, because they're all kind of based on the same database. Alright guys, next word, okay? We need to look up one more word, which is apple. What's apple? Someone probably already knows. I'll look it up first, I'll be faster. If you already know it, good on you. Oh yeah, this is another thing that I've talked to Lorenzi about, changing. Ringo. そうですね, ringo. Ringo. This is another thing I've talked to him about changing, is making this like more compact, or like maybe moving it to another place, because it fills up a lot of space. So the way this works is ringo, the first one that shows up, will be the most common way to write a word, but then sometimes there's multiple different ways of writing the same word. So we have a lot of different kanji versions here, which we do not have to worry about today. We're only going to focus on this first version here. It's a conjugation page as well, which is super helpful if you're just starting out with that. I don't know how to most stems. Yeah, it's good if you can look up the conjugations before you learn it. But we will learn all the conjugations here on this channel in future episodes. 私は箸は渡しません。あ、いやいや、読みづらい。私は箸は渡しません。私は箸は渡しませんは。はとは、はとは、多用する言葉。そうですね。読みづらい。That's difficult to read. I am an apple. ありがとうございます。Alright. We have our word. We have our word. And you will notice again, this is a noun, which works out. So, when I make sentences, or in general, when you're a beginner, it's good to have these sort of methods of sanity checking your sentences, okay? So ringo here, I'll write it down, and then I explain what I mean. Someone already posted, ringo.nest posted ringo in katakana. You might see it in katakana as well. We're gonna write it in hiragana for today. Ringo. Ringo, like this. So a good way to sanity check yourself in this specific way is you go to the dictionary, you look, okay, ringo means apple, and it is a noun. That is good. So, like I mentioned before, objects in a sentence need to be nouns, or like some form of noun, like maybe a nominalized word, or maybe a pronoun or something like that. Things that can function as nouns, right? So, if you want to sanity check yourself, you want to like, wait, is it okay for me to put this word here? There's always kind of certain things that you can use to double check that. In this case, we can use the simple, sort of almost fundamental truth that objects within a sentence, if they fill the role of direct object, they're usually nouns or noun-like words, noun-type words, we could say. And since ringo is such a word, so far everything seems to work out, right? There you go. So, this is another example of why knowing a little bit of basic grammar terminology, basic sort of like grammar framework stuff, it can really help you sort of double check yourself. It can help you, like, guide you in the right direction with these things. All right, what particle are we gonna use? I already almost gave it away, basically, so tell it to me, write it in chat. Spam it if you need. What particle are we gonna use? There's only one left, but type it still, it's practice. Oh, more O's. Make it rain. Whoa. Yeah, that's also fine. Romaji. W-O. That's another thing. So, you might see if you go online. So I'm gonna write the the hiragana first. So this is obviously unambiguous. This is oh, right? This is what I mean. You might, exactly. There you go. You might see it in different ways. You might see it romanized as O or W-O. So I prefer this, but both exists. I just prefer this because it's closer to how you would type it, stuff like that. But you might see both. The same goes for ha and wa. So sometimes you might see, when it's a particle, you might see this as wa instead, or as ha. I like this because it's how you type it, basically. It's really hard to really say like which one would be better, but I just like having it the same way as you would type it on your keyboard. But yeah, that's both systems exist, so it's kind of tricky. That's kind of why you should move away from Romaji as soon as you can. Like, move away from Romanized characters. In conversation, is it okay to skip the O? Yes. We're gonna look at particles and how they work a lot more in detail. But since this is lesson 1, for now, let's say it's there. You might hear it dropped. Particles in conversation or spoken language often get dropped. That doesn't really mean that they're not there anymore. It just means that we don't mention them, we imply them, we don't bother mentioning them, but essentially sort of like in the meta sentence, they're still kind of there. So let's put our particle, which is oh, what is our last word? We need, what is gonna be the last word that we're gonna put here? What type of word is it gonna be? What is it gonna have to be if we want to make a simple SOV sentence? What are we lacking? We lack one word now. Ski. Not quite. See, this is tricky because in Japanese, ski is actually an adjective. And if it was an adjective, we couldn't use o because adjectives never have direct objects. Konomu, yeah, konomu works. Tabemasu, yeah, so verb. That's kind of the answer that I was looking for. The type of words that we're looking for is a verb. There you go. Eat, eating. We're going to go with eating. We could use different verbs, essentially. Tabemasu. Yeah, so we get a bunch of good answers. Since this is more of a conceptual thing that I want to talk about, steru, yes. What is important to me is that you understand that we need to add some sort of verb, right? Kazuma-san, follow, arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you for following, Kazuma. Welcome. Yeah, so the important part is it has to be some sort of verb to complete this structure. Because so far, we have gotten a subject and we have gotten an object, so we need a verb. And yeah, most of you have already mentioned it. You can have different ones. We have a bunch of options in chat, but we are going to go with taberu. I'm going to show you this in the dictionary as well. Taberu. There you go. Taberu, to eat, right? It's just to eat. And then we're going to look into this word here, transitive. We're going to look at transitivity in detail in a future episode. That might be episode 3 to 5, I'm not sure yet. But transitivity is going to be very important in the future. For now, let's not worry about it too much, but keep it in mind, it is very important. So, taberu. I'm going to keep this here while I draw, so you can look at it. So we're going to write it in kanji, because why not? Early exposure to kanji is better. Taberu. I'm going to use the dictionary form of it, basically how it is written here in the dictionary, right? How it is written here. Lots of you in chat suggested tabemasu. Obviously, that's perfectly fine. It's the polite version of it. I've made the decision that in this, let's call it should I call it a course? I don't know. In this series of videos, we're going to start with the dictionary form, which is the way that the verb will be written in the dictionary. And we're going to learn the polite form early on, but later. This is just how I'm going to do things. You can do it either way. If you're using a textbook such as Genki, you'll have learned it the other way around. I personally prefer this way. Arguments can be made either way. I prefer this, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Taberu. Okay, I'm going to use the dictionary form. My internet. No, your internet. And full stop. Period. We have made a sentence. I'm gonna add a little furigana on the bottom, which is just a ta, singular ta, there. Ta, taberu. That's our sentence. We did it! Ladies and gentlemen, we have learned how to make a simple 3-word SOV sentence in Japanese. And because of what I mentioned earlier, we can actually sort of, let's draw like a little box around this. Here. And here. Box. And another box. So we can move these two around, okay? We could switch this, and the meaning of the sentence would not change. A slight bit of emphasis would change, that maybe we're putting a little bit more emphasis on the later words. That is very subtle. The basic meaning of the sentence will not change, and you're allowed to do this. You can't do this in English, but Japanese, you're allowed to do it. Speak like Yoda. So yeah, that's the difference, right? If you do it in English, you're going to sound like Yoda. If you do it in Japanese, you're perfectly good. You're fine. That's it. You're allowed to do it. It's fine. You can do it. You can say, Ringo wo watashi wa tabemasu. Ringo wo watashi wa taberu. I eat. The colors hurt my eyes. Really? Why? Yellow and red. I think they're fine. Oh no, yeah, that will mess with you. I love how we can see the stroke order influence even when you put those words in boxes. Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. I tend to draw boxes like this now. So that's the power of particles. We can move things around, where in English we couldn't do that without either fundamentally changing the meaning of the sentence or fundamentally having to change how we write the sentence in the first place. Whereas in Japanese, very often your options are free, where you can like rearrange these things. Isn't all has to be. So this is a common misconception. Again, remember what I said earlier. Particles are suffixes. A particle is never in front of something, okay? At least you shouldn't think of it like that. A particle is never gonna be placed in front of another word. It is always placed after a word, and it affects the word that is written after. This o here only affects like this taberu here, okay? Again, there might be a longer string in front of the ringo or whatever. There might be like another word there, but the basic gist of it is that the influence of the particle goes backwards, okay? So what is in front of this o, essentially, we don't much care about, okay? The o does not need to be in front of the verb. It can be in front of whatever, because it doesn't matter. What matters is what is behind it, okay? What matters is that ringo is behind it. Ringo o always means that ringo is the direct object of that sentence, all right? So, with that in mind, we have now basically learned. What have we learned? Let's recap, okay? Because we're getting to the point where I'm going to be cutting it off. We're going to make a few more examples after this, but first let's recap. We have learned that basic sentence structure can be explained with the 3 words subject, object, and verb. We have learned what these mean, which means subject, which is usually the doer of the action, the object, usually the person affected, or the thing or person affected by the action. And we have learned that in Japanese, this order is essentially SOV. Okay? Is there a rule where the stress tone goes down or up stays for particular particles? No. This will be determined by the word preceding the particle. So you can see here, if I give you an example like hashi, that's actually a good question, Akuri. Very good question. So pitch on particles is determined by the word that precedes it. For example, for hashi, you have up pitch. You can see it here in the dictionary. This is called heiban. So, well, actually, this might not be heiban. This might be, what's it called? Odakagata? Anyways, you have ringo wo watashi wa tabemasu. Ringo wo taberu no wa watashi da. So desu ne. So you have, you can see these lines here, right? So hashi has this up pitch where it's like hashi, hashi. But here we have this little vertical line going down, which usually in dictionaries indicates a drop on the particle. So for a word like bridge, like hashi, we would drop low on the particle. We would say hashi wa hashiwa. That's how you would say it, more or less. My pitch isn't perfect, far from it actually, but I know these like principles of it. And then, thank you for the follow. Thank you, and thank you. Thank you so much. And then we have other words, such as this one here, edge, also, hashi, no drop. Here, the particle will stay high. It will stay on an up pitch. So we would say, hashiwa, there you go. So, particle pitch is dependent on the word. It depends. And then obviously here in chopsticks, you have hashi. So here the particle, actually I think if you have, oh gosh, let me get this right. If you have a word like this, the particle would usually stay down. I'm not sure. クラムさん、例えばこう、箸なら、その次に来る助詞の、アクセント。投稿。Would it be 頭高 So, こう、箸とかこういう言葉なら the pitch stays down. Okay, it stays down. こう次に来る助詞のアクセントはこう低いとか高い Do you say 低い or 高い I'm not actually sure. Yeah. So, Brandon says pitch stays down, and I'm willing to believe that. That sounds about right to me, yeah. So, usually if you have a word that ends in a low pitch, I'm pretty sure the particle will stay in low pitch. I would have to confirm that, but that sounds about right. Alright, did that answer the question? Hashi and second high, same pitch. Okay. Oh, okay. Hashi, so desu ka. Okay, good. So, yeah, that's it then. So, you'll have a, you go high, low, and stay there. You stay there. Never has I eat apples given me so much headaches. There you go. Yes. Alright. That was a little excursion into pitch, which I don't know if that will even be a topic of this series, because it's such a different kind of thing. It's very spoken language focused, and it doesn't have much to do with grammar. But yes, there you go. Little excursion into pitch. It's good info, yeah, for sure. It's good to know. Alright, we were at the recap. So we learned about sentence structure, then we learned about two particles and what particles are. Again, particles mark the function of words, and particles are suffixes, so they're attached after the word, okay? Number three, or rather, the two particles we learned were wa and o, which is the topic marker, which can also often mark the subject, but not always, and the direct object marker, o, which always marks the direct object. The last thing we learned was how to put it all together into a sentence like this. Watashi wa ringo o taberu. Plus, that we can now move things around where in English we couldn't. Those are the three things basically that we did until now. And before we call it a day, again, I want to keep these episodes to about an hour. We're already running a little bit over, but that's fine. That's exactly what I need. Thank you. There you go. So, before we end the episode, now with all that knowledge in mind, what we'll do is I'm going to clear all this, and we're just going to make some example sentences. So, there we go. Delete. What I want you to do now is give me example sentences. I'm going to give you... Okay, this is your task now in chat. I'm going to give you an English sentence of the same structure. So any like subject, verb, object, very simple English sentence. And I want you to give me the Japanese only using those things we learned. And if you want to look up a word that you don't know, you can actually use my bot. I have a bot in chat. Feel free to use it. If I say, for example, the word boat, okay, and you don't know what that means, look it up. The bot will tell you. And even tells you if it's a noun or not. So there you go. So I'm going to give you a sentence. I'm going to say boto. Yes, there you go. It works both ways. How about we do the sentence... I'll write these down, by the way, so that we know. Oops, that's wrong. T. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm in Japanese keyboard mode, which is never good when you're in an editing program or whatever. So why don't we start with a sentence such as... I throw the ball. Remember, okay? I throw the ball. Remember that in Japanese, okay, we don't have articles, okay? This doesn't exist. We don't have articles in Japanese. So the two things, right? No articles. No articles needed. Like the doesn't exist. Articles. And no plural, okay? No plural. No plural. So you don't have to worry about these things. Alright, so people looking things up. We're gonna do 2 or 3 of these. Red. Why red? I'll help you a little bit, okay? I'll give you the verb, because it's maybe a bit annoying. I'll give you this one, okay? Here. No, I want you to translate exactly the sentence I wrote. I thought it was nageru, usually. Yes, nageru is good. Use this one. I'll help you a little, because sometimes it's kind of annoying if you just have look up. Watashi wa tama o. Wait, what was this? This is not a very common word. Or at least I haven't seen it, but yeah. Toteki, throw. Toteki suru. Toteki. So yeah, thank you and you. You ran exactly into this issue that I was talking about earlier. We know that toteki is a noun. So I'm gonna show chat for a second. But the issue is, toteki is a noun. It means a throw. Like literally a noun throw. Watashi wa boru o nageru. Perfect, right? That's what I was going for. Ware wa sono tama o toteki su. So Clam made a really interesting example there, which is actually correct. So the issue you run into with these things, this is an issue that you might run into using Google Translate instead of a proper dictionary. You might look up something like throw. Throw. Oh, sorry, misspelled it. You might look up something like throw, and the dictionary might be, actually here it works, so yeah, I don't know. There it is, toteki. So that's what you found, right? And Google might be, oh, you mean the noun throw, like making a throw or whatever, right? And Google might be like, okay, I'm gonna give you this noun, toteki, which is not at all what you need. But then a good way of double checking yourself is, well, I need a verb, but here it says it's a noun or a suru verb. We're gonna talk about suru verbs in the future. But if it's a noun, then it's probably not what you need. And then, so yeah, one way of getting around that, to throw. So then we get into the issue that my bot only will look up singular words at a time. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's like a limitation of the bot. I might be able to figure that out, I'm not sure. Yeah, I might be able to figure that out in the future. Right now I only look up singular words. But yeah, so if you're using a dictionary like this one, like Lorenzi's, you'll see, well, we have an ichidan verb. So that looks about right, nageru. So we'll use this. Also, fan, if you want to make that polite, since this is an ichidan verb, we'll learn about ichidan verbs. I'm saying a lot of these sentences like, we'll learn about it later, but we will, okay, I promise. Nageru is an ichidan verb. That means the conjugation pattern will be as such that it becomes nagemasu, nagemasu. Watashi wa tama o nageru. Perfect, yeah, so now you got it, right? What is ichidan? I'll tell you another time. That would actually go way outside of what I planned, but maybe I can just explain it after the episode ends, because I'm going to be streaming for a little bit more, maybe playing Breath of the Wild or something. Alright, so let's write down that sentence. I'm going to go back in here. Well, first, before I do that, delete this, go here, and we're going to make a new line and call it, not call it and write, Watashi wa boru o nageru. Which you did really well with. There you go. So many grammar stuffs. Yes, so that's why I have lots of material to make lots more episodes. Oh, Chertalia, thank you for the follow. I didn't notice you there, but I did now. So I hope you don't mind. Thank you so much. Welcome. I'm going to quickly get rid of this stuff, and then we're going to do one more. Missing the O, aren't I? Boru nagerima. Yeah, you're missing them all there. It seems way too difficult to teach at the very beginning. Yes, that's true. We'll look at it another time. One more. We'll do one more sentence, and then that will be the end of the first lesson, so to speak. One more. Let's say you want to make the sentence... how are we going to do this? A simple one. For example... I throw the trash. No, you throw the trash. How about you throw the trash? You throw... Wait, no, let's do, throw away. I'll show you what word I mean with that. I'll show you the dictionary just to make it easier. So what I mean is, I mean this one. Use this one, steru, which means to throw out something, to get rid of something. Steru. with that. あなたはゴミを捨てる。あなたは私はゴミを捨てる。You throw away the frames. I throw away the frames. I don't need those frames. あなたはゴミをあなたはゴミの折れを捨てる。Interesting. Good choices. We have some interesting choices there. I appreciate that. Alright. Aren't the verbs the ones that end sounds eru, iru? Well, I promise to talk about it, but it will really just blow this episode out of proportion if I want to talk about verb types now. We'll talk about it properly in a future episode, for sure. That's going to be a big part of this. Like, there will be many episodes on just verbs and conjugation. So, あなたはゴミを捨てる. Alright, but I think you get the idea. Two particles that we use, wa and o. A handful of verbs, a handful of nouns, or pronouns. We're good, right? We can make basic Japanese sentences. And since many of you have gotten correct Japanese sentences in the chat, I would say today's goal has been reached, because today's goal was, if you remember, enable you to make some very simple Japanese sentences that follow this structure. And again, you could switch these around. You could say, ボールを私は投げる. You could. Works. Fair. So we did it, ladies and gentlemen. This is where I wanted to be after today's episode, and this is where we are after today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this a lot. I'm recording this. This will be a playlist on YouTube, which is exactly the reason why I want to keep it more short. I don't want to do 2 hours. Preferably, I want to do 1 hour per episode. Today we went 90 minutes. That is fine. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I hope you liked it, and we're going to do this once a week now. Hopefully building on each episode. And yeah, next week, I think I already mentioned it, but next week we're going to talk about the copula for the first time, and we'll probably talk about it again. But yeah. I gotta go too. Thanks for the lesson. Yes, thank you for watching. I really appreciated having you around here. After this is going to be basically me doing a little bit of chill time. I'm going to hang around first, probably just chatting and talk about the verb question that we had. And then after that, I don't know, we might play some Breath of the Wild if you want to hang around for that, while you can still keep asking me questions or just talk about whatever. But for now, I will stop the recording, which again will be on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel here if you want to check that out. Yeah, and that's that. And also we have a Discord, of course. Of course, I got to shout out the Discord. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you watching the recording right now in episode 2, which we'll do next week, and it's going to be all about the copula. What is the copula? I don't know. You'll have to wait until next week, next Wednesday. Thank you so much. I'll see you there.